Mr. Harper was born on January 9, 1928. He was raised by his mom and dad. His dad couldn't work because he was an invalid, and his mom worked at the shirt factory. He had two sisters. In school, he failed his 7th grade year. He also only made it to the end of 10th grade and didn't get to graduate. After he gave up on school, he decided he wanted to go into the military. He enlisted into the United States Marine Corps in 1945, which was when World War II was near its end. He received his basic training at Parris Island, South Carolina, and there he learned how to operate pistols and rifles.
I ended up down in Parris Island, South Carolina, and you can't describe it. It would take too long. It was rough, rough, rough. You paid attention, you didn't talk back, you listened to what they said, otherwise you'd hang it by a rope or something. No, seriously. You don't step out of line, you don't do anything that you think is funny, because it's not going to pay. They'll jump all over you.
Then he moved on to specialized training at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, where he pursued his career with his trombone and joined the military band. He also earned his rank, which was Staff Sergeant. After he finished his training and boot camp, he was ready to go into the war. He got onto the President Adams troop ship and traveled over the Pacific Ocean for 19 days, till he got to China to fight in the Chinese Civil War. While in China, Mr. Harper also got his GED. Mr. Harper and the rest of the American soldiers were alongside with the Chinese nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek. It was not a very dangerous war because the Chinese didn't have heavy artillery. When he was over there, he stayed in tents and slept on cots. He was also issued a carabine and a .45 pistol.
When he was in China, all the Chinese people were happy to see the American soldiers. Even the prisoners he held gave him no problems. They were mostly happy because the Japanese soldiers annihilated them all. The Chinese people were very poor. They had nothing. They would always ask Mr. Harper for money. They would take anything but pennies. The Chinese people would always take any leftovers of anything, food or shells of bullets. One time they were taking shooting practice with a 37mm gun, which is a little cannon. And when it would go off, the Chinese people would go and pick up the little metal from the shells. And one time 5 or 6 children picked up a dud and it exploded and killed them all.
This isn't a favorite. This is not good. The Field Artillery Weapons Company, they used to go out in the field and have practiced quite a bit with 37mm gun. Now that's a little cannon, not big, 3-inch. And when everything would explode, the Chinese would run out there and to pick up the metal from the shells, that exploded. Like I say, nothing went to waste. But these 5 or 6 little children, they picked up a dud, 37mm, and it went off and killed them all. I have pictures there. They brought the kids back to the barracks, laid them out back, all blown apart. And anyway, the parents didn't want nothing to do with them. They don't, because they can't afford to bury them. But
Also, when he was in China, he was always in contact with friends and family. He was always sending letters home and receiving them to try to stay connected to his friends and family. He also made a lot of friends when he was at war. He had a lot of free time because the battles were just little skirmishes, and in between those battles, he got to go to the shooting range, clean his rifle, or write a letter. Since he was in the band, they also played their instruments in their free time and practiced for the mealtime concerts. Even though America was a stronger force than the communists who was fighting against them, the communists still won. Chiang Kai-shek signed a peace treaty to end the war or to surrender, which made Mr. Harper mad because the time seemed to be wasted since their leader backed out of the war. After Kai-shek signed the peace treaty, he started to head home. When heading home, he didn't have to go by ship, which he thought was great. He flew from China to California with some stops in between. They stopped at Okinawa and the Kerguelen Islands to eat and to refuel. Then they then stopped at Ahoya, and he thought he would finally get some liberty, but he didn't, as he had to be on MP duty. After Ahoya, they went to Treasure Island, which is in between Frisco and Oakland. They all had to be there for 30 days. After the 30 days, he flew to New York, then took a bus to Reading, and he then started to walk home. Then a man named Woody Wise picked him up and took him home. When he was home, he was accepted by the community. When he was in the service, he learned to look everywhere at the same time. That was the main thing he picked up from war. He also learned to behave and think things out before doing them. He never regretted going into the service one bit, but now he is against war and doesn't like it. He received many medals for being in war, such as the Navy Presidential Unit Citation, the Good Conduct Medal, China Service Medal, Navy Occupation Medal, Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal. Mr. Harper has been a big part in helping this country. We would also like to thank you for your service in the military and also for participating in our Veterans History Project.